For decades, traditional publishing was seen as the ultimate goal for an author. If you wanted to be taken seriously, you had to get an agent, land a book deal, and secure a spot on a major publisher's list. But in the last 10 to 15 years, this path has narrowed drastically. Publishers now prioritize books that fit within a specific ideology and cultural framework, one that increasingly excludes men of all races and sexualities, particularly in genres where we were all once welcome. The result, more and more male writers are being forced into independent publishing, and let's be real, that's probably the best way to go. And yet, in indie spaces, once a haven for creative freedom, has developed its own set of gatekeepers and toxic dynamics. It's no longer an open frontier where anyone with a great book can succeed. Instead, it's become an echo chamber, mirroring the same favoritism and exclusionary tactics seen in traditional publishing. If you enjoy watching my slow descent into creative breakdown, consider supporting my continued descent into that said madness. Leave a comment, it fuels my fragile sense of self-worth. Subscribe, because watching me struggle in real time is probably entertaining. And join my Patreon, YouTube memberships, or Substack. Your support helps me justify my life choices and possibly my entire existence. Publishing has always been subjective, but there used to be basic expectations. If a book was well written and had commercial appeal, it would stand a fair chance. That's no longer the case. Many industry insiders now use their positions to push particular ideology, often at the expense of storytelling itself. Take literary fiction. Once dominated by a wide range of voices, has now become a genre where only certain types of stories are deemed worthy. Male authors who focus on themes like ambition, masculinity, or external struggles are often dismissed unless their work is filtered through an approved political lens. Even in science fiction and fantasy, once known for its very creative possibilities, stories are increasingly judged not by their world building or originality, but whether they align with modern identity politics. This has left many male writers, especially those writing in traditionally male dominated genres like military sci-fi and lit RPGs, with fewer opportunities. What's most frustrating is the hypocrisy. Publishing considers itself to be inclusive and markets itself on being an inclusivity thing. Yet it often excludes certain demographics under the guise of progress. If a male writer pens a novel about war survival or traditional heroism, he is labelled as problematic, unless he subverts those themes to fit the industry's expectations. The double standard is particularly evident when you compare how male and female writers are treated. A female writer writing in a male-dominated genre, whether the book is good or not, is celebrated as trailblazing. A male author writing in a female-dominated genre, he is accused of taking spaces away from women. The playing field is anything but equal. For a while, independent publishing was seen as the answer. Here, writers weren't beholden to the whims of agents or editors. They could write stories they wanted, market directly to the reader, and find success based on their own merit. But over time, the same ideological trends have took over traditional publishing spaces have creeped their way into indie circles. Indie publishing community, particular those on platforms like Twitter, Reddit, Discord, and so on, have developed unspoken rules, or spoken rules they only say in private. It's the expectation that the book should conform to the same societal expectations as traditional publishing, or risk being ignored, blacklisted, or outright attacked. In many indie communities, particularly on Discord servers and writers groups, well-known voices, I won't name, have openly stated they refuse to read books written by men. Others have admitted that they will only support male writers if their books feature female leads or align with very specific ideological themes. To quote one, "A destruction of masculinity gets me off." And I won't name names on that one, but she's quite big. This has created an environment where male writers, regardless of their race, sexuality, struggle to gain visibility. The indie space, once open to anyone, is now closing its doors to any writer who doesn't conform. Here's what's happening. Indie Many indie writers groups, Discord servers, and review communities are run by individuals who see themselves as gatekeepers rather than facilitators. If a book doesn't fit their personal belief, they will simply refuse to promote it regardless of its quality. Some indie book bloggers and reviewers won't even consider books by male authors unless they meet certain criteria. A military sci-fi novel that celebrates heroism and war strategy, toxic masculinity. A fantasy novel with a rugged male protagonist, outdated. Meanwhile, if a book deconstructs masculinity, it's welcomed with open arms. Just as in traditional publishing, success in indie spaces is often related by who you know rather than how well you write. If an author isn't part of the right circles or doesn't participate in expected social activism, their work is far less likely to get promoted within indie spaces. Indie publishing was supposed to be a great equalizer. It was meant to be a place where everybody could write and succeed based on skill, marketing savvy, and so on. But now it's become just as restrictive and insular as traditional publishing. This shift is especially dangerous because indie publishing was the last refuge for many male writers. If both traditional and indie publishing are hostile to them, where do they go? For some, the answer has been to build their own spaces, independent forums, self-review sites, and personal newsletters. But the larger issue remains. The industry, once claimed to champion all voices, is now actively silencing certain ones. So, what do male writers do? Where do people go from here? How do they navigate an industry that increasingly tells them they're unwelcome? The answer isn't to beg for a seat at the table, but to build a new table. Independent authors need to create their own networks, ones that aren't built on ideology, gatekeeping, but on merit, craft, and genuine support. Readers must take control of what they consume. Instead of relying on influencers, TikTok, BookTube, podcasts, all of that stuff, they should actively seek out books that match their tastes rather than following trends dictated by a small, insular group. And this is a big one. Writers need to stop seeking validation from these toxic spaces. And it's easier said than done. I was one of them. If a community refuses to support them based on their gender rather than their work, then the community is not worth their time. The indie spaces can be a haven for great writers, but only if authors take back control from those who would rather police narratives and promote creativity. Traditional publishing may have shut the doors to many male writers, but indie publishing doesn't have to. Honestly, it's time to reclaim what made it great in the first place.